It's been a few years ago, we were doing basketball stuff with our oldest, and she had to go to, was it Kayla? It wasn't Kayla, it was Lauren that we were doing basketball with at this point. Because we were going down to Terra Vista Middle School, and they were playing basketball with the different teams down at Terra Vista Middle School. And we walked in this one particular time, and the door going into the gym had this sign on it. It said, "Parents, children not playing basketball must stay with you in the stands. They may not be around Terra Vista unaccompanied." Now, that seems reasonable, doesn't it? That all these kids coming after hours and they're all in the building together. So it said, don't let them go around the building unaccompanied. But it was the next line after that that caused me to chuckle just a little bit. Because that said, they may not be around Terra Vista unaccompanied. Then it said, sorry for any inconvenience. That is sad that whenever parents get to the point that being responsible for your children becomes an inconvenience. And I remember those days. Sometimes it still happens, you know. I got my youngest in here tonight, and yes, there is at least one story with her in it tonight. She wanted to be here to defend herself and to give a rebuttal. But yeah, sometimes kids can be an inconvenience. But with what we've been talking about, what we've been doing and trying to improve our skills with our kids, they become less of an inconvenience. They become the true trust that God has given them to us to be. So let's start off with this particular video. Get your handkerchiefs out, get ready to sniffle just a little bit, and let's remember kind of what we're doing with our kids.
I knew this day would eventually come. I just
didn't think it would come so fast. I remember.
Everything we taught you. Remember, if you need anything
anything at all. Look, it is a crazy world out there where people don't
Care if they hurt you or not. They don't care that you're.
I know that. And you better call me twice a day because no matter
what happens, I will always be there. Seems like just yesterday. I'm a girl. Now we're all grown up. So you have a good day. I'll be right here.
Waiting for you to come home. I remember everything I taught you. You say,
Dad, I got it. You can stop worrying. I'll be fine.
I know. Oh dear, I promised myself.
I hope you cry.
Done for just a short time. And like we said at the beginning, life is not a dress rehearsal. I mean, this is it. And so we got to make the most of what we got while we've got them and give our kids plenty of opportunities to have their dress rehearsals while they're at home before they get out in the real world. So talk about several tools to put in your toolkit. Hopefully you've had some chances to experiment with those. Any stories, any thoughts, especially when it comes to delaying the consequences. Oh man, we're gonna have to do something about this, but not right now. Take care of it later. Try not to worry. So we've got delayed consequences. We've got what was we talked about last week? Energy drain, and then expressing empathy. What did you have, Linda?
It wasn't any of those, but it was a funny story.
Okay.
So on Sunday, I told Adam, I'm gonna be doing laundry tomorrow, so if you wanna put your laundry in the laundry, put your basket of laundry in the laundry room tonight or tomorrow morning, then I'll wash them tomorrow. Well, of course, he didn't do that, and I didn't remind him. I was telling him I'm trying to train myself not to remind him. It was really hard for me though. So he went on and this morning, this was really kind of funny. He's calling me, Grandma, it's an emergency, he's calling me. He's in the corner in his bedroom, completely naked, sitting in a corner like this, covering himself up. I need underwear bad. And I said, what do you mean? There's my laundry basket. You have to wash me some underwear. I mean, he's ordering me around, just like I'm his slave. I said, no, do you remember? I told you on Sunday that you would have to put the laundry in the laundry room because I do laundry on Mondays. What am I gonna do? I said, well, I don't know. What do you, maybe you'll have to wear a dirty pair of underwear. I don't know. What do you think? Well, then he comes out a few minutes later comes out with some jeans on that are too big for him because, you know, he bought all his best jeans. And he says, I just decided I'm not gonna wear underwear today. But he did start,
That's an option.
yeah, that was an option. And he did start some laundry. So he brought his laundry into the laundry room and did his laundry.
Good for him. That's great. Anybody else? How'd the experiments go this week?
It's
Give your best shot.
Well, Jimmy kept saying he had an energy drain, and I said to Jimmy, did you watch that tape from our class last week? And Jimmy said, no. And he kept saying, I'm getting my energy drained. I need to refill my energy. I need to get some help refilling my energy. And I asked him like 3 times, did you see our class? That was our class last week. Nope. He says, nope. Finally, after like 5 days, yesterday I think it was, he finally admits that Kendra told him about it. We were at the dinner table, and I says, how come all of a sudden Jimmy's asking all about this energy drain stuff? Where did he come up with that? Kendra says, well, I told him about our class.
I didn't know he had been saying it all day to her, because I haven't been home.
He said it
during the
several
day,
times
So I
today.
didn't know he had been saying.
Well, I'm a little curious how you drink this energy.
No, it would be little things that drain his energy. It doesn't take a lot.
I thought maybe it was something you did.
No, if he has a friend over to play and there's a while, that's draining his energy.
Well, that would drink energy. Yeah, that could be too. Well, we've been talking about this letting empathy and consequences to do the teaching, let empathy and consequences to put you on your kid's side instead of against your kids. And so that they know that you're on their side as they go through those things. And I gotta tell you, remember last week we said sometimes all you need to do is the empathy. There was, I could let Angela tell this story, but I'll try to tell it and she can tell me, no, you told it wrong. But she'd start this at the beginning of the school year. And now you understand there's the behavioral management tool that they use, their friendship whenever she was teaching kindergarten was this board that each child had a pocket, and in the pocket were some stars. There was a green star, a yellow star, and a red star. And when a child messes up once, they go and they move the green star from the front to the back so the yellow one shows. And then if they mess up again,
So I actually got 2 green stars.
2 green stars.
Let me tell the story.
Yeah. 2 green stars, and then you get to the yellow star, and if you ever have to go and move the yellow star to the back, it shows red. And then if you have to move that one, then you gotta go down and visit with the principal. Well, first of all, let me let you know, that's fine if they wanna do that friendship. I don't recommend that at home. I mean, if you wanna give your kids 4 or 5 chances to really mess it up before you get serious, then that's up to you. But it's, you know, when it comes to love and logic, let them learn the first time. Don't say, now I'm warning you, that's 1, that's 2. It's kind of like the guy that had the mule, you know, and it stumbled, and the guy said, all right, that's 1. They go along a little bit further, and the mule stumbles again, and the guy says, that's 2. Finally, they go a little bit further, and the mule stumbles a 3rd time, and he says, that's it, that's 3. He pulled out his pistol, boom, shot the mule dead. Well, his wife was appalled. He said, I can't believe you did that. Why did you do that to our mule? And he looked at her and said, honey, that's 1. So anyway, don't do that with your kids. Just go ahead and shoot. No, don't shoot at the beginning. But anyway, so she's got this class, and she's also, of course, in practice, showing empathy and that sort of thing, so that she responds first with that empathy, and then she lowers the boom. And so at the beginning of the year, kid messes up, and so she'd say, oh, Carson, it's not good to tear somebody else's paper. Go move a star. And Carson would get up and he'd go move the star to the back. Well, after about 2 or 3 months of that, then all she'd have to do is say, uh-oh, Carson. Carson would get up, he'd go move the star. She didn't have to explain what he did. He'd already got it figured out.
Sometimes I didn't even have to call her name.
Well, yeah,
No, I
by the
just
time that mid-year came, whenever January got here, they'd all be working at the desk, they'd be doing stuff. And then somebody would do something and Angela would just go, uh-oh. And all the kids' heads would turn, you could hear a gasp, you know, like somebody did something. And the guilty party would get up without calling their name, go over, move their star, come back and sit down, they keep on working. See, whenever you use the emphatic statement, the empathetic statement, what it will do is it'll turn on this little light bulb that says something significant has just happened. And they'll get it. Uh-oh, what a problem. And they learn, yeah, that's a problem for me. So try that empathy and those consequences. But one of the things we want to make sure that we do is not get into a situation where we wind up with a consequence that we're not real pleased with. Like mom comes up, Michael, if you're rude to me once more, you'll go to your room for the rest of the day and no supper. So what does Michael do? So she marches him off to his room, and at the end she says, they always make you carry out the threats you wish you hadn't made. Well, our goal as parents should be to get our kids to focus more on their behavior rather than focusing on our reactions to their behavior. How do you do that? Well, we've been talking about it last week and talked about it for several weeks now. You start with that empathy. Oh man, what a bummer. Can't believe this. Oh, this is going to be so hard. And then you start lowering the boom, and it gets them kind of focusing on what they did. Again, to help them profit from their mistakes, prove your empathy and understanding before letting them know what the consequence will be. Don't display your own anger and frustration like we talked about last time. Sometimes parents may need to take an uh-oh time and take that time away. So now we're going to talk about this one parent. We're going to start talking about, we talk about what you do whenever you don't know what you're going to do. Okay. So it was the delayed consequences. That way you can think through and kind of put a plan together. There was the energy drain where you just fill it up with chores, something like that. But best thing to do as much as you can, and you hear parenting experts talk about this all the time, is to try to come up with what are called logical consequences. What are those things that would logically follow a certain SLO that your kid has, that significant learning opportunity? So I'm going to play you this story and listen to how this parent uses some of the techniques that we've talked about in here. Notice how she keeps the focus on the child's behavior, not on her reaction to the behavior. And notice how the reactions that or the consequences that she comes up with are logical to what her son does. In her particular case, the son's a pretty tough kid. And so if you kind of get the tough kid out there, then you can kind of, water that down some and deal with kids that aren't quite so tough. Of course, if you got one of those tough kids, you might want to try this as well. So listen to this story and then we'll kind of go from there. Oh, I can't do it. Where's that? Uh-oh. Can't believe that.
Oh, man.
It is an all man.
Bummer.
Target sauce.
Well, so mom got, we'll call him Mark. She's got this teenager named Mark. And, it's really important to get kids to help you with chores around the house. It makes them a part of what's going on, helps them to understand they make contributions to the family, helps them to understand they are important parts of that family, and family can only work as far as they work together. We got way too many kids that they get to sit in their room and they get to practice all the video games and all the YouTube and all the TikTok and all that kind of stuff while mom and dad are doing all the stuff around the house. So mom decides she needs to figure out some way to get Mark to help around the house. So she talked to some friends, she put a plan together, and so she came up to Mark one day and said, Mark, tell you what, I need your help around here. I need you to go out and mow the lawn this week. Now you don't have to do it today, but sometime by the end of Friday, I need you to go out there, I need you to mow the yard. And he says, what are you talking about? I ain't doing that. I'm not born around here to be your slave. No, you want that lawn mowed, you mow it. She says, oh, you don't want to mow the yards? No, I'm not going to mow the yards. Well, tell you what, you might change your mind and get it done by Friday. That'd be great. Just be good. That's all she said. So the day passed, and of course, Friday got here and left. And the lawn had been mowed. Well, she kind of called around a little bit more, what's she gonna do about this? So Saturday morning, Mark gets woken by some noise outside his bedroom window. And he looks out the window and there's this guy out there and he's mowing the yard. And so he comes and says, Mom, who's that guy out there in the front yard? And she says, well, I asked you to mow the yard and, well, you decided that you didn't want to do it. So she said, I saw a sign down the street, said this really good college kid. He said he would mow yards. And, well, I just decided to ask him. Since you didn't want to do it, I just decided that maybe he'd do it. He says, great. So she starts walking away. Oh yeah, there's one other thing. And she said, by the way, when he gets finished, he's gonna come in here and he's gonna ask you how you're gonna pay him. He said, what? He says, yeah, I mean, you didn't want to mow the yard, so I figured that, you just pay somebody to do it for you. So however you want to do it, you just go ahead and pay him, y'all kind of work that out. I'm not gonna pay him. I'm not, you hired him, you pay him. He says, you're not gonna pay him? He says, no, I'm not gonna pay you. You hired him. She said, oh, well, okay. No problem. I tell you what, I'll take care of it. So he storms off to his room. Well, a couple of days passed and he comes in and says, Mom, where's my bike? She says, what? She says, yeah, my bike, it's missing. My bike's not out there. She says, oh, well, see, Mark said, you said you weren't going to pay the guy. And so I said, well, okay, so I had to go ahead and take care of it. So I sold your bike so that you could go ahead and pay the guy for mowing the yard. He said, you what? She said, yeah, I sold your bike so that I could have some money to pay him. I mean, after all, you didn't want to do it. He says, you can't do that. She said, oh, well, I thought I could. I didn't realize I couldn't. So I went ahead and did it. He said, that's not fair. I'm calling social services. So she said, oh man, you're going to call social services? Yeah, I'm going to call social services and take care of this. She says, oh man. She said, I already did. And so she reached out and pulled out this card and says, yeah, I talked to this really nice lady. Her name's Miss Hyman right here. Here's her card. She said, you give her a call. She said, she'd be happy to talk to you, but, she said, how sad. Well, that's, sorry about it. He said, oh, fine. I'm going to call the police. She said she hadn't thought about that. Now, the way they tell the story, they lived out in rural North Carolina. And she said, remember the show, Dukes of Hazzard? Remember the deputies? She said, that's what you see driving up. And the sheriff's deputy comes out and says, what's the problem here? So he explains to her, Mom sold my bike and took my money and she's stealing from me. And so she tries to explain to him kind of what happened and all this. He says, ma'am, don't worry, I'll take care of it. That's the line she used. So he goes in and he looks around the boy's room and there's the Xbox and there's the nice, big stereo and there's the nice computer set up in there. She's still kind of worried about what he's going to do. And so the sheriff comes over and says, youngin', I guess you'll be listening to your mom from now on. And left. You hear some of the ways that she kind of took it. She kept the behavior on the child, what he had done, what he was responsible for doing. How do you get kids to do the chores? How do you get them to learn from those SLOs? Well, we allow consequences to the teaching. And you couple that with strong doses of empathy so that you don't put yourself up against your child. And I got to wondering, is that really how God does things? Is that really the way that he treats his children? Then I was reading one day from the book of Matthew, and I don't think any of my stuff is going to work tonight. Y'all may be missing out on lots of stories tonight if I can't get this to work. Let me go back. Make sure this is on. There we go. Remember, talking about logical consequences, making sure that we're on their side. Listen to these couple of public service announcements that came on.
He would come home after a hard day and just start in on me, like, hey, how's your day? How was school? What you got going on? I mean, it gave me the chill.
The time I got this wicked cool scorpion tattoo on my shoulder, not even the whole arm, just the shoulder, and he grounded me for 2 weeks. 2 weeks! And oh yeah,
Don't worry, they'll appreciate it, eventually. A message from the National Fatherhood Initiative and the Ad Council. Have you been a dad today? For more information, visit fatherhood.org.
So they had these series of commercials on there. I know some of you may have heard them, but it's been a few years ago now. But there was this one in particular that came on that just cracked me up, and it has to do with logical consequences. Listen to this guy.
But I wanted to major in ceramics because I'm like way good at it. My dad told me I'd have to pay my own tuition. Like, duh. How am I supposed to earn that kind of dough making pottery?
Let the consequences do the teaching. Again, asking if God would do it this way. Well, I was reading from the book of Matthew. Now the story kind of goes, Jesus is headed to Jerusalem for the last time. And it's like he kind of comes over the top of this hill around Bethany, and he looks down into the valley below, and up Mount Zion, there's Jerusalem sprawled out in front of him. And he makes this statement. He says, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you. How often I've longed to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you weren't willing. Look, your house is left to you desolate, for I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Do you hear the empathy first? Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I tried to warn you. Oh, we tried to do all this, tried to send all this folks to you, and it just hurts my heart. But now you're going to be left desolate. Then he lowers the boom. And that's what he asks us to do as well. Talked about this difference between punishment and consequences. Punishment is associating behavior with bad feelings. Sometimes it's okay. I mean, sometimes punishment is what needs to happen. Punishment is appropriate under certain circumstances. There's no question about that. But how much better is it if we can associate bad feelings, or instead of those bad feelings, with consequences? It's kind of like, I didn't mean to break the angel, Daddy. It was an accident. Dad goes into it. I told you to stop playing with it. Why didn't you just leave it in the box? You just never listen. You never do as you're told. I said, please don't be mad at me, Daddy. I'm sad enough already. I read those moments. Associating the bad feelings with the SLO. Kayla was about 5 years old. And it had been one of those weeks. Kayla she tested me one day right after the other, right after the other, right after the other. Then one of those weeks I got on to her and got on to her and got on to her. And so finally by Friday, she comes up and she gets in my lap and she says, Daddy, I hope that maybe soon I can be a good girl again, and then you won't be mad at me. And she pulls out the salt, Yeah. See, what she was associating, what she was reacting to was my reaction. She was focusing on my reactions, not on her own behavior. What we want to do is get our kids to focus on their behavior. Otherwise, when we rely on punishment, then we may get into a situation like Dennis here. She says, I'm sorry, while he's over sitting in the corner. And then he says, sorry, I got caught. See, when you don't associate the behavior with the consequences, what kids will do is they will do what they can to hide the behavior so that they don't have to see your reaction. The focus isn't on the behavior. It's on how I react to it. If I can focus more on consequences, then it associates that with their behavior, and then they can focus on how their behavior led to those bad feelings for them. You see the difference? We talked last time how there's a fine line between them. But if we can focus on the consequences and tie them to them, then we can see how that will help them focus on that behavior. Benjamin, he was a young kid around here at this time, whenever this story took place. He's 3.5 years old. And Benjamin was having one of those situations where Benjamin was having a hard time getting ready in the morning. Mom would turn on the TV and he was allowed to watch TV while he got up, he got dressed, you know, got his teeth brushed, his hair combed, he had to put on his shoes, he had to go in and he had to eat breakfast, he had to get his stuff ready to go for the day. And he was not doing just a real good job of getting all that stuff together. And it was getting where Mom was getting later and later and later out of the house in order to get where she needed to be. And so finally she sat down with Benjamin and said, Benjamin, I'm so sorry. She said, this just isn't working. She said, I know that we've had the TV on every day while you've been getting ready, but it just doesn't seem to be working. So she said, so she used an enforceable statement. She says, I'll be happy for you to watch TV as long as you're getting your stuff done and we can get out of the house on time. So the first day came up, and what do you expect Benjamin to do? Well, he's sitting down there again, and he's so focused on what the TV's doing. She came and says, oh man, Benjamin, I'm so sorry. Click, turned it off. She says, time to get up, get your stuff done. You're not getting it done at the same time. So, you know, he kind of fussed and cried a bit, but he went, he kind of got his stuff done. Same thing happened the second day. Same thing happened the third day. Same thing happened the fourth day. She was just about to give up. She says, I'm having to go in, I'm having to turn off the TV every single day. This just isn't working. Fifth day comes around, and she goes into his room, and the TV's off. She said, what are you doing? He said, well, I decided to turn the TV off so I could get my stuff done, and then I'd watch it before we leave. Hear the consequences you're associating with behavior? He learned to set his own limits. And how much better if we can teach our kids to self-discipline rather than us always having to do the discipline. So, what does this look like? Well, when possible, let's let logical consequences do the teaching. What's that going to look like? Well, a logical consequence is when the consequence is obvious and it can be delivered easily and quickly. I mean, it just flows. This happens, therefore, this is what we will do. This happens, therefore, this is what happens. Secondly, when you consult with the child, allowing the child to do the thinking. Sometimes a logical consequence comes whenever you use that problem solving method. Oh man, this is so sad. What are you going to do about it? And if you get the kid thinking through what they're going to do about it, then it becomes a consequence that they can come up with that's tied to that somehow. And then the logical consequence is one when you're not sure what to do, you may then want to consult with others before determining the consequence and see how that happens. Now, how early can you use logical consequences with kids? How old do they have to be? 0? Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, as soon as the kid can suffer consequences from something that they do, they can make decisions based on those consequences that they have. So they're not be very old. Now, you can have to adjust them and adapt them according to the child and what they can do, but as soon as they can suffer the consequences, they can start making decisions. So there's Brandon. Brandon was in 3rd grade, and he was 4th grade. You kind of get into 4th grade, you start getting that precocious age where, you know, they see how much trouble they get in. They do it before that. Brandon's 4th grade. Well, the problem this time was, this is a situation that happened at a school, but you can take some of the principles that kind of apply to parenting as well. They had their class pictures. And you know, where everybody gets up, they get on the risers, and they're all, you know, standing there and they're smiling for the camera. Only this time, whenever the picture got home, the class picture got home, parents started calling the school, and they started calling the principal. What kind of school are you running down there? Don't you have any control down there? Because they got to looking at the picture, and Brandon was up on the top row, and just as the picture was being clicked, he puts up his middle finger that you should never put up by itself, and gave the bird to everybody in the picture. Parents were not happy one bit. So Brandon gets called down to the principal's office. Brandon, principal says, I've been getting calls all week, and I don't like getting calls like this. And I'm just curious, you know, what do you think you can do about this? Because this has got to be solved. Brandon's sitting there, he's got his head down, he says, I don't know. Principal says, well, would you like some ideas? Brandon said, okay. Now remember, you always offer a bad solution first. Because kids like to reject ideas, especially from adult figures, adult authority figures in their lives. And so he said, well, some kids might call the photographer and ask the photographer to adjust the photo, doctor it up a bit, see if that'll work. And Brandon says, okay, I'll do that. Principal said, oh, wait a minute, don't you want some other ideas? He said, no, I don't want any other ideas. I'm ready to get this over with. Principal said, well, okay. I mean, principal was thinking, there have been, other situations like that. He thought, well, one child had a similar situation. The child came down, and one of the ideas was to ask the parents forgiveness, and so the child started writing out letters to each of the parents, or they called them on the phone. Well, not Brandon. He wants to get this done right now. So the principal walked out of the office. He decided he says, well, I'll go get the photographer's phone number, and I'll let you give him a call, and I'll let you work it out with him. You can solve this any way you want to, as long as you don't cause a problem for anybody else. But let me go get the number for you. Principal went outside. Now remember, what was said was, whenever you do stuff like this, you got to plug your holes. And so you got to figure out what might go wrong. You got to plug your holes. So while the principal was out there, he made a couple of phone calls. The first one was for to the photographer. He said, I've got a kid here. He's going to be giving you a call here in just a minute. He says, now I don't want you to make him leave. I don't want you to make it easy on him either. I want him to learn this lesson. So if you wouldn't mind working with him and doing what you can, Charles said, sure, he'd be glad to. Second one he called was mom. He said, now mom, I think Brandon's going to be giving you a call pretty soon. And he's going to be asking you if he can make a long distance phone call and charge it to your phone. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go ahead and say yes. You can work with Brandon later about how he's going to pay you back for it and all that. And so he explained kind of the situation. So, okay, be glad to help however I can. So principal comes back in the office and hands this piece of paper to Brandon. Here it is, Brandon. Brandon takes a look at it and says, no, wait a minute. He says, what's this number here? It says 412363. What are all these numbers? He says, oh, Brandon said, this photographer lives up in Chicago. This is a long distance call. He said, you can't, whenever you make the call, you got to pay for it. He says, I can't pay for it. I don't have any money. Oh man, that is bad. What are you going to do about it? So I guess I'll have to call my mom. So he goes in and calls his mom. Mom, she's in on it. She gives permission for him to make the call, and so Brandon makes the call. Talks to the photographer. He says, I need you to do something with the photo and make it good. He said, and the photographer said, oh, Brandon, I can't do that. I said, that's not legal. He says, I can't doctor photos like that. I can't go back in there and do that kind of stuff to it. I just don't do that. Brandon says, well, what am I going to do? The photographer said, I'll tell you what. I'll come back and I will take the photo again. Brandon said, that's great. Would you do that? He says, yeah, but wait a minute. He says, if I do that, he says, I've got to do it at a time when I'm in the area anyway. And I can't, there's going to be like a $15 fee to get everything set up and everything ready to go and get the class together. And he says, okay. He says, I think maybe I can do that. And he says, well, wait a minute. He says, I can't do this on my own. He says, I can't bring in a big crew. Otherwise, that's going to cost a lot more money. So I'm going to have your help to do all that. He says, okay, I can do that. And then he says, oh, and by the way, Brandon said, for me to make these pictures again, they're going to be, $4 each. He says, what? He says, yeah, $4 each. So Brandon kind of did the math in his head. He says, I don't have $60. And so the photographer said, oh man, well, I thought you'd like the price. He said, remember, that's if I am in the area anyway. He says, otherwise, it's going to be like $700 for me to fly all my stuff in from Chicago and take this picture at another time. He says, oh, yeah, maybe I can handle $60. I got $70 from my grandmother last birthday. Maybe that's a good way I can use that money. And so the photographer said, okay, so let me check my calendar. He says, well, I think I can be in the area on November 17th. And so Brandon said, wait just a minute. And so he took the phone down, he said, asked the principal, says, he said November 17th, will that work? The principal thought to himself, he says, you know how hard it is to get teachers to check the calendar before they plan things? He thought that was incredible for this fourth grader to be doing this. So he looked at the calendar, yeah, that looks okay. And so Brandon got back on the phone and says, okay, that's great, November 17th. Photographer shows up, Brandon helps bring in all the equipment, he helps get it all set up. The class comes in, Brandon has them get up on the risers and he threatens them not to do anything while they're taking the picture. And then they take the picture and there's just one thing missing whenever the pictures go home this time. And there's this certain finger that has shown up in the picture the first time. You hear the logical consequences all along the way. Have you determined if the consequence is logical, realistic, and constructive? Well, number one, is it tied to the time or place of the infraction? I'll give you some examples here in just a minute, but is it something that you can tie to that particular behavior and it's a part of that infraction? Is it similar to something that happened to an adult in the real world? And can you kind of tie it up in that way? What would happen if I didn't do anything? See, sometimes logical consequences will present themselves if I just wait, because someone else will kind of watch out for me. For example, you get Archie and Jughead. Did you get your class project done? I'll find time to do it. I'll do it before bedtime. Oh, I'll do it at breakfast. Oh, gotta go, I'll do it before class. Gets in the class, Mr. Grundy looks at him. He's in detention after class. Jughead says, well, he said he'd find time to do it. Sometimes logical consequence will present itself. Will the focus be on the behavior that caused the consequence? Again, rather than my reactions, will it focus on the behavior that caused it? Can you express the loss of privilege in a positive way? That's what the enforceable statements are for. I'll be happy to do this whenever this is done. I'll be happy to do this for you, take you to places you want to go. When I feel treated with respect, chores are done. Can you do it in a positive way? It says, you're not going to, as long as you, as much as you can keep it on the positive level, it focuses on the behavior. And do you protect the child's sense of worth? Is it something that focuses on the strengths of the child rather than the weaknesses? Yes, you can solve this. Yes, you can overcome this. Whose problem is the infraction really? Sometimes we've got to let somebody else handle the consequence because it really belongs to somebody else. And then does the problem affect need to impose the consequence? So let me give you some examples here. This one, I actually got two different letters this way. And I don't know if you can read them from up there, from way back in the back, but both letters basically say the same thing. The first one says, Dearest Emily, I came by tonight to retrieve your tooth and leave your payment. However, because of the condition of your bedroom, I had a horrible time even getting to your bed safely. Once there, I was unable to locate the tooth pillow due to the amount of pillows, blankets, and bodies in your bed. I'll have to come by on a different night. Perhaps you can take the time between now and then to properly clean and organize your room. I bet if you ask your mother nicely, she will even help you do it. With much love, the Tooth Fairy. I've actually heard of 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 parents actually doing this. That, Tooth Fairy can't quite get in. Same thing happened to Donovan over here. The logical consequence. Oh man, you didn't get your room clean. Tooth Fairy couldn't make it over to your room. Now, one particular night, Lori, she was in kindergarten at the time, and Lori had some homework that she needed to do. And she was just in one of those moods where she just didn't want to do it. She just had one of those nights, you just don't want to do your stuff. So she said, I just don't want to do it. Angela said, really? You just don't want to do it? No, she said, I don't want to do it. She said, okay, I understand. Well, I'll tell you what, before you go in there and watch TV again, I need you to go get a piece of paper. And so Lori went in the other room, she came back, she found a pad of paper, and she came back with a piece of paper. This is the piece of paper that she came back. So Angela said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna tell you, I want you to write this down. So Lori got her pencil and got her piece of paper. And this is what Angela dictated for Lori to write. Dear Miss Dean, that's her teacher's name. I did not do my homework because I watched TV. Love, Lori. She got all the way to the end of it. She said, okay, go put that in your backpack and take it with you to school tomorrow. Lori said, wait a minute. That's why we still have the note. She got her homework done. So there came another night. Lori's in 5th grade. Kayla's in 6th grade. Now I gotta tell you, in 6th grade, huh?
Kayla is 6 years older than me.
Yeah,
5th grade and 6th grade.
kindergarten. Kindergarten, I'm sorry, did I say 5th grade? I'm sorry, kindergarten. Boy, that is lousy handwriting for a 5th grader.
I was surprised kindergarten couldn't even write it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, she's kindergartner.
That's pretty good for a kindergartner.
Yeah, it was pretty good for a kindergartner, but I thought for a 5th grader,
Maybe she didn't need to do her homework. She can write that.
No, she can be a doctor. She can be a doctor, yeah.
She's a nurse, so there you go.
Yeah, she's one step closer. So and Kayla had, she had one of those years where 6th grade was pretty rough for her. There were some expectations and stuff in 6th grade that were pretty bad. And so Kayla came home one day and said, I'm not doing it tonight. I'm not doing my homework. I just said, okay, no problem. But hey, before you go any younger, just get you a piece of paper. So Kayla got her piece of paper. And this is what it looks like. Dear 6th grade teachers. Now that's as far as she got. Lord Angela said, now I'm going to dictate this to you. I want you to write it down. Okay. Dear 6th grade teachers. So she wrote it down. Wait a minute. She got it on to a real lot faster. She put her pencil down. She went and did her homework. By the way, another parent heard about that, and so they decided that they were going to try that with their kid. And they sat down and they wrote out the note. And the parent came back the next week, and I'm still not quite sure exactly what the parent meant by this, but the parent said, my son did not like that. I said, isn't that the idea? You see, when you do logical consequences, they're not supposed to like it, okay? Our job as parents is not to be their buddy and their friend. That'll come later. Our job is to be the parent. And it's okay if they don't like the consequence. It really is. Remember, one of the things was, see if you can do something that mimics the way the real world, what happens in the real world. And so, in this particular case, our kids had a really bad problem of coming in the house, and the first thing they would do is they would just drop their backpacks in the door, or on the way to the kitchen, in the living room, or just in the hallway. They would just drop their stuff and then they would go. Used to drive Angela bananas. And so she'd be after him, get that in the room, take it where it's supposed to go, get this. Well, she's finally through trying to coerce and trying to threaten and warn and lecture and all that stuff. And so what Angela came up with, and I've got a copy of one of these right here as well. This is what it looked like. She came up with parking tickets. Notice of illegal parking. You have parked in a no parking zone. This is a parking ticket. Fine, $1. And then there was a place to indicate that it had been paid. And then fines can be paid in dollars or in chores. And whenever she'd see the stuff laying there, she'd just take one of the parking tickets, write their names on it, and just drop it on their stuff. And then later on, she'd come around and collect fines. I mean, can you do that? Pretty soon, things started making it to their rooms. We also had a problem with running in the house. And so we had a separate one, and I don't have a copy of it, but it was Speeding ticket, yes. And you can really do it real good with that because with the speed, now this is gonna drive this class crazy, but this one you can be dramatic with it too. Woo, 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 you know, and then you pull them over, you write them the ticket, you give it to them, it says, all right, I'll be happy to take, money, or you can make it up in chores later on. Thank you for understanding. Go your way.
But if you make it up in chores, it's like twice the value it might have been.
Oh, yeah. I mean, chores, it's gonna be expensive. That's right. What do you do where it would mimic what the real world does? And then one parent, they showed us this one. Toy jail. You kept it out and I picked it up. I've got your stuff, you're out of luck. To get it back, please do it, sure. Then it's yours, just like before. Love, money. You have a toy jail of some kind.
Like the one where is it the chore list, and then they tell after this is done, you can have the Wi-Fi password. It's like the Wi-Fi password changes every day or whatever.
That's right. Yeah. And because Wi-Fi is getting in the way of getting your chores done, I'll be happy to give you the Wi-Fi password as soon as your chores are done. Tie the consequence to the behavior. Logical consequence ties the consequence to the behavior. And if you can't quite come up with a logical consequence for this particular behavior, delay the consequences. Oh man. We're gonna have to do something about this. I tell you what, not right now. We got things we gotta be doing. We'll take care of it later. I'll tell you what it'll be later. Try not to work. Stephanie's back there and I can tell she's going, she's good. Yes, I can do this. I got this. Gotta take care of this. Now, if you're not careful, you can destroy the teaching value of a logical consequence. You can destroy everything that you have worked hard to accomplish in giving these consequences. This is how you do it. Say something like, this will teach you your lesson. How do you learn your lesson? Because I will guarantee you that if you tell your child that they will learn a lesson out of this, they will do everything they can to show you that they didn't learn a lesson out of this. And hey, if they don't learn the lesson the first time, they get extra lucky because they get to do it a second time and a third time. I mean, we talked about the value of SLOs, significant learning opportunities. Huh?
The whole reason you guys want your kids to fail so you can do all the chores.
You better believe it. Listen, I got out of a lot of chores. Angela got out of a lot of chores through the energy drain. Oh, I'm sorry. You got to fill up my energy. She got the floors vacuumed a whole lot. She got the dishes done a whole lot. She got the laundry folded a whole lot. Yeah. Tying it to the behavior. Display your anger or disgust. See, you can do all the right things, and if you do it the wrong way, it will destroy the value of the consequence because they start focusing on my behavior, my reaction, not on how their behavior led to this consequence. I can explain the value of the consequence. Now, this will be very good for you. This will build good character in you because that's not appropriate either. You can moralize or threaten. Better get this done before tomorrow. You know, if you really loved me, you'd get this done. By talking too much. Remember the one of the first weeks when I said one of the most important techniques and the hardest for every parent to learn is learning how to keep your mouth shut. I appreciate Linda's story because she's I've been learning that. Keeping the mouth shut.
Because it was really difficult for me not to nag him.
Yeah.
Not to tell him, put his laundry in there. And I almost laughed when I saw him naked in the corner. I couldn't even, I guess his plan, I think his original plan was to stand in that corner until I washed his clothes and dried his clothes and brought them to him. I think that was his original plan because he didn't think it through. I mean, it's hard to believe.
No, he's pretty smart.
If he was smart, he wouldn't have waited until he was completely out of underwear. I mean, completely.
Well, he was smart. He thought he wouldn't have to do it, and you'd go ahead and do it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, because I didn't just.
Then you can feel sorry and give in. See, that's what he wants you to do. He wants you to feel sorry for him and just finally give in. That'll destroy the value of a logical consequence. Or you can ask, okay, what did you learn? What did you learn?
It's hard not to do those things though.
It is very hard. As parents, parenting, a parenting style is so much based on what we have seen modeled or talked about in other folks. And it's not that we've had bad models in the past. I had really good parents, but I don't know, somewhere along the way, the anger gets in, the lectures come naturally, all those things start to hit. And so we have to learn to retrain ourselves as well. And just as with any other training, it is not always easy. Especially like we were talking about with the emphatic statements, it's not always easy because it doesn't always feel natural. So we have to retrain our own behaviors, which is why we start with the emphatic statement. It reminds us to wait. So notice how this mom, hope it works this time. Yeah, listen how this works.
I remember one particular year when local PTAs were hiring me quite frequently. And it got so that 1, 2, 3, 4, in that fourth chair right there appeared the same woman night after night. I'd see her one week, I'd see her the next week, I'd see her another week. I finally said, "You've been coming to the same speech. I give several different kinds of speeches, but I notice you always come to the same one." She said, "Sure. I work for a company that knows all about learning theory. And I've learned what we teach other people is you have to have 6 to 8 repetitions on something before it starts to soak in and you really start to make a difference." So she said, "I come every chance I can to listen to the same presentation." She said, "Besides, you taught me how to listen to your audio tapes. So I listened back and forth to work. You taught me the first time you listen for the fun of it, to see that there's hope and help available, right? And then you start listening for specifics. Like for a while, I'll just listen to how the parents use choices in different kind of ways. Just listen to that same thing and then I'll shut it off and then I'll think about it, and then I'll experiment, and then I'll listen again, always listening for that. Then I'll start listening just for how we use the empathy. And then after a while, I'll start listening just for how we set the limits and so on." She said, "I am getting so good. You'd be so proud of me. My kids can't even handle me anymore." She said, "I am getting so good, man, you ought to see me." But she said, "I've got it all down except for one thing, the empathy. I know I should do it, but my kid does something wrong, and before I can open my mouth or even think, out comes my mother. I hear her nagging, angry voice. I sound just like my mother. I just did." She said, "I thought if I heard you one more time, I could get it locked in." She said, "Don't take it personally if you don't see me next time." But she said, "I got to tell you how good I'm getting. My daughter is in 5th grade. She refuses to bring home her spelling words. Every week it's a battle. Did you bring your word? Well, my teacher forgot to give it. Did you bring your word? On, just doesn't happen. And finally, I've listened to your tapes enough. I started to hear your voice in my head. And it rings in my ear now. And it says, quit reminding. Every time you remind, you steal away her opportunity to learn to think for herself." So she said, "You'd be impressed. I'm not reminding." She said, "Quit rescuing. See, you're constantly going in and making it right for the kids, standing between her bad decision and the consequence. Quit doing that. You're stealing from the kids." So she said, "I finally got off all my nerve, and I started to pray. Please, I got to keep my mouth shut. Because I heard your voice again, and it said, if you keep your mouth shut, the school will provide the consequence. Then the school will be the bad guy, and you can be the good guy if you provide enough empathy." And she said, "So for one solid week, I kept my mouth shut. I am so proud." And the school did their job. They gave her a D on the test. She brought that D home. I heard your voice again. Say, "Okay, hit her with empathy." Oh no, a D. Oh, that must feel awful. I bet that hurt so bad. And for the first time, instead of her being tough and nasty, she started to bend her shoulders. She's really starting to look kind of sad. She's seeing little wrinkles on her forehead. She says, I'm really getting to that kid. And then I say, what are you going to do? And she says, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she said, I had her right in the palm of my hand. I had her right where I needed her. And then I just had to do one more thing. I don't know why, just to do one other thing. And you're not going to the party on Friday night. You're staying home. And that kid threw back her shoulder. What do you mean I'm not going to the party? Those are not fifth grade words. Those teachers, they give you a lot harder words than they're supposed to. And they never give you any help. And you raise your hand and you ask for help. And they never give you any help. And they never give you any, it's not my fault. She said, look at that. I was that close. And I had to blow. Had to get angry. I had to make threats. I had to do punishment. So I thought, well, what would a good consultant do? What would a good consultant say? When you can't think of anything else, you always say, what are you going to do? So I said, what are you going to do? And she said, I got it. She said, I'm praying for that kid to have the same experience next week. I'm praying to stay out of it. I'm praying she doesn't study. I'm praying she doesn't bring home her words. I'm praying the school gives her a D. And when she comes home with that D, I'm going to give her a heavy dose of empathy. And then I'm going to say, what are you going to do? And when she says, I don't know what I'm going to do, she said, I'm going to say, oh, how sad. And then I'm going to walk off. Has she got it?
So one quick final word. Remember, parents have SLOs too. Not just kids. And this is, I heard this from a parent educator sometime back here, and it stuck with me. What you do is perhaps not as important as what you do after what you've done. Okay, let that roll around a little bit. What you do is perhaps not as important as what you do after what you've done. You mess it up, if you had an SLO, it's okay. It's not fatal. Just pick it up from there and do something different after what you've done. And let your kids benefit from it.